Today, we are diving deep into some really fascinating and, let's be honest, pretty unconventional ideas from the book The Return of Christ. We're going to focus specifically on its teaching about reincarnation and what it claims it really means to be born again.
So, let's kick things off with the central question that this whole explainer is built around. The source material basically asks us to consider this. What if being born again isn't just some feeling or spiritual event, but an actual physical journey? It's a question that, right off the bat, challenges a major cornerstone of belief.
Okay, so to really get our heads around the claims being made here, we first have to look at the idea that this teaching is pushing back against.
Now, you're probably familiar with the common understanding, right? For a lot of Christian faiths, being born again is this really profound but, metaphorical event. It's a spiritual transformation that happens in your heart in this lifetime when you commit yourself to your faith.
But oh boy, this source material, it doesn't just disagree with that view. It completely demolishes it. This quote right here from Lord Rael, who is a central figure in the book, it doesn't pull any punches. It calls that common understanding a delusion. So it's a direct, head-on challenge. And this slide really lays it all out, side by side. On the one hand, you've got the common belief, a spiritual moment, right here, right now. But on the other hand, you have the teaching of Rael, a literal physical event that happens after you die. These aren't just slightly different takes. The book is saying these are two completely different realities.
So, you've got to be asking, how does the book build its case for this physical process? Well, the whole foundation for this alternative view of being born again rests on one single doctrine: reincarnation. And right away, the book argues that reincarnation isn't some New Age concept that's at odds with the Bible. Not at all. It presents reincarnation as a core biblical process. And what's the purpose? It's so the soul can keep coming back to mature over many lifetimes, learning all the lessons it needs to learn.
So, if it's a biblical concept, you might wonder, why isn't this taught in every church? Well, the teaching claims the evidence has always been there, right in the scriptures. The problem, it says, is that it was either misunderstood or, get this, deliberately taken out by the early Catholic Church.
And as their Exhibit A, the source points right to this verse. This is Christ talking about John the Baptist. The interpretation offered here is that Christ is being very plain, saying that John is the reincarnation of the old prophet Elijah. It's presented as a direct confirmation.
And the argument doesn't stop there. It builds with other examples like the disciples asking if a man's blindness was caused by sins he committed before he was even born, which implies a past life. Or Job talking about returning to the world after death. Or even the original prophecy in Malachi, which said Elijah would return, a prophecy this teaching says was fulfilled by John the Baptist.
Okay, so if reincarnation is the why, the reason for all this, then what about the how? How does this literal physical process of being born again actually work according to this teaching?
And this is where it gets really wild. This teaching connects directly to that famous tunnel of light people report in near-death experiences. It says that's not just some hallucination. It's a literal portal to another planet, a waiting area for souls. And that bright light at the end, that's the sun of that other world. So the process it describes is actually pretty clear-cut. Step 1, you die on Earth. Step 2, your soul goes into this portal, it travels down that tunnel of light, and boom, arrives on another planet where it gets a brand new body, all ready to continue its journey.
And this is the absolute crucial point. This is the big reveal. The term born again is presented here as a literal analogy. Just like a baby travels through the birth canal to be born here, the soul travels through the tunnel of light to be reborn over there. It's not about a change of heart. It's about a change of address and body.
All right, let's just pause for a second and think about this. The implications of redefining born again in this way are, well, they're massive. It changes almost everything.
So what this teaching basically does is take the idea of being born again from this one-off symbolic moment and turns it into the central, repeating engine of the soul's entire existence across multiple lives. It becomes the mechanism for spiritual evolution.
And that leaves us with this final thought to chew on. If one lifetime is just a single page in a much, much larger book, how does that change the way we look at everything? Success, failure, learning, love, loss? What's the purpose of it all? It's a really profound question, and it's one this teaching forces you to ask. Thanks for tuning in.